Good day, lords and ladies, and welcome to Land of the Vikings, a colony simulator game developed by Lapis Games and published by Iceberg Interactive. This game is an early access, and it was sent to me to do basically sort of a Cornish first look. This is a very nice independent, like little indie title colony simulator game with a lot of effort that's gone into it. It's still in early access, so everything that you see here is within the reasons of being changed. So just take it under a grain of salt. I've played a few hours of it to get a feel of the game, to get what my opinions of it are. I like it. There are some things that I think they should change, or at least tweak. We're going into that as we go. But let's first get into the settings. Gameplay settings are nice. You have autosave frequency in minutes, which is always nice. User interface scaling, very nice. Graphic-wise, lots of lovely settings. You can do windowed, borderless, full screen. You can do all the different VSyncs, all the different settings here, which is very nice. Lots of options, which is something I always like to see in the settings. Sound is not too bad. You've got the ambient sound, master volume, music, and effects, which is always nice to see you have controls over. Controls, you've got mouse control speed, camera speed, inverted controls, that kind of thing, which is always very nice. Then you've got your inputs, basically your keyboard commands, which is very nice, which is fantastic. Right, let's dive into games. But the settings wise, I think they have very nice settings. We'll do a new game. You can randomize your village. We're going to go Holdgate as the name of our village. You can edit the banner as well if you wanted to. So, for example, you can do different colour schemes, different sigils, or you can see all the way down here, all lovely kinds of Viking-themed sigils. Let's go with this one. I like this one. That looks quite nice. Or let's actually go with this one here. That looks nice. And we'll go with... Let's go with a... I was trying to do the Cornish colours, which is like... Actually, it's black and white for the Cornish colours, yeah, for the flag of St. Piran. It is black with a white cross. It's supposed to be a silver cross representing the tin. That's one thing I will also say here. As you can see, the colour name is behind the arrow, and you can't really see it, so it should probably change that. But that looks nice. Black with a white motif. We'll go with that colour scheme. And I shall see you all in most accurate. So let's go back here. As I'd say, you can also go here. This is one thing I should say. You can basically pick what land masses you want. You can go valley, green bay. As you can see here, it gives you the size of the map, how many resources are there, how distant they are from the colony. But we're going to go with basically that. We'll go with this starting. Small land is basically your starting sort of tutorial. You can have the tutorial thing turned on, which is nice, which I'm also going to do just to show off some features of the game. And when we hit start game, it will basically turn the thing on. So I'm just going to put a quick cut in here. Well, actually, yeah, I'll put a quick cut in here, folks, just so you don't have to sit through the loading screen, which can be a little bit long. And I shall see you all in a second. Welcome back, lords and ladies. Welcome back to Land of the Vikings. So this is an early access build. As you can see, this is a very lovely colony game. I do like this game a lot. It has a lot of lovely feel to it. There are some things, as I said, that I would like to change if I was able to. But let's get down into it. It has the standard controls. One second. My mouse isn't as good as it used to be. There we go. Just changing the angle a little bit. So, as you can go and you can zoom all the way in, you can see the villagers. Each villager has a name, and they are part of a household. You can jump to the house, jump to the villager, jump to the building they're working in. The villagers all have their individual stats: intelligence, speed, strength, and luck. They also have their traits, which basically handicap their efficiency, how old they are, their gender, that kind of thing. As you can see here, you can go up and have a look at the resources that you have access to or you're gathering. You can look at what jobs are available. You can look at if we have any ships, what buildings have been built. So currently we only have a single carpentry. You can then go into, for example, then look at the different families. So we have the Lift family, the Jewel family, and the Sigvat families. And you can basically then go to each of their houses, which would basically tell you which house the family is living in. All families live in family units. Though in my experience, this is one thing I will say that I do find slightly frustrating about this game, is that as soon as, like, for example, if we go to, let's find a family that has kids. I believe it's this family here. So yeah, here we go. Children. So once, for example, this person grows up and becomes an adult, he will move out of the house and he'll expect to have his own house. So it can become one of these issues where you end up having a lot of just like single people walking around wanting houses, which historically wasn't really that accurate. It happened. I won't say it didn't happen, but at the same time, it wasn't as prevalent as it is today. You had larger family units living. You had multi-generational habitation of single houses. Tended to be quite a common thing. But anyway, so first objectives for the training is we need to cut down, order a tree to be cut down, order some rocks to be gathered. So what we do here is you go to these options. These are basically your primary interaction buttons. Central one is basically the central button opens up your crafting menu, allows you for all the building, storage, food production, that kind of thing. Then you have on your left, you have basically a chop wood and a cut wood order. Or chop wood and cut and dig stone. You can see here the instructions are playing out, telling you how to do it. It's fairly simple. As you can see here, you just hold down the left mouse button and you just sort of swipe over the things you want to be chopped down. And then you can deselect by basically doing Control and left mouse, and then it's right mouse button to get out of this menu. That's one thing I will also say. For example, if we click on a villager, like this villager here, this thing stays popped open. So sometimes you can be trying to access, say, this, and it can be a bit finicky at times. I find that a lot of the time you have to left click just to sort of deselect someone. But we're going to put that down there, get that stone harvested. Now roads. Roads are one of these things in this game where you can put them down to make it easier for villagers to go around. It does cost you money to do though, so be aware. What I tend to do is I tend to put down a primary road going through the middle of the village. Costs a bit of money, but it also allows us to very quickly get things going. You can also press Q or E to widen or shrink the road. Let's get that road down. And we're going to drop this one down in size a bit. Something like that. Costs us a little bit of money, but it makes people happy to basically be running around on roads rather than just walking around on the ground. So we're going to get that done. We'll also put a road down here for our carpenter. One thing the game doesn't tell you, which I wish it did, was that, for example, your people expect to have firewood. So one of the things you do want to have early installed when you have the option, when we basically unpause the game, is that you'll want, for example, to put down a woodshed, which will allow you to basically produce firewood for winter. There is a day-night cycle. You can see up here it's daytime, and then we have seasons. And certain things will not happen in winter. For example, crops won't grow. So it's your very typical sort of colony survival game. You want to harvest resources for the winter months. Now, if we look here, they're saying we need to put people to the carpentry job. And it's saying we want people that have the physical, basically high physical. So let's put 2 of our best physical workers in, like that. It's currently closed because we haven't got any timber selected. So let us get that done. We have put the cut wood order in place. so they should hurry and do that. Let's just speed up time. So some of them are chopping stone, as you can see here. Some of them are standing in it. Some of them are chopping down wood. Here are your primary resources. Before we go any further, this is your primary resource in the game. You have logs, where you've got wood, timbers, stone, dressed stone, silver, and food. These are your primary resources. Everything is either going to be built or requires some combination of these. Next to you see basically how long you've been in the game. We've been in the game 73 days. How many villagers we have. How happy they are. The fame of our colony shows the size and strength of the village, obtained by completing objectives, increasing the village population and by various events. And the defensive point of the village can be increased by training new warriors or installing defensive decorations. Warriors on missions are not included in your defense. There is a combat mechanic in this game. Now, I will say that I haven't managed to get to that stage where we're going out and raiding, partly due to one of the issues that I want to bring up, which is the tech tree in this game. The tech tree in this game is, in my opinion, one of the issues I'm currently having, which is that, as you can see here, it is literally a tree of life. It is basically a tech tree. The issue I'm having is that a lot of the things are kept behind tech level gates, which is fine. It's like, oh, that's no problem, except that one of the issues is that if you pick up any of these side things, which are actually fairly nice, like they work faster, they're happier, crop duration is increased, that kind of thing, you can very easily find yourself running out of the tree of life points by increasing. You run out of the tree of life points, which you use to basically get more unlocks, and the only way you can get it is by getting more fame. Now, that doesn't sound hard. It says here, as you can see here, it says, oh, get more fame. New point every 400, currently at 330 fame. That's fine, but like getting fame is not as easy as you'd think it is, because it's limited to either completing objectives, increasing your village population, or by various events. So, if you don't have any objectives, and you're not having a lot of special events popping up, you can only really get it through increasing your population. And population increase in this game can be a slightly frustrating thing to handle, in my experience, particularly in some regards when it comes to where you can put buildings down, which is something that I've wanted to basically get into for a while and talk about for a second. There are certain things that do limit that. We can also look at our decorations. A lot of decorations in this game don't have, this is the difference between this game and a lot of other games. This is telling you how to place stuff down. You can basically hold down Z and just use the mouse button to swing around. Personally, I would have liked it if Q and E allowed you to basically do the same process. It doesn't, which is a bit annoying. But we're going to put some torches down just because the villagers complain about it being dark at night when they're walking around. And it's like, oh, it's dark. There's monsters in the dark, which is, to be honest, if this is following Scandinavian folklore, that is probably a very good point that there might actually be monsters in the dark. I will say, I wish that you could basically change your camera angle when you're trying to plant stuff down. You can't. So it's one of those things where you have to sort of be in the angle that you want to see stuff to basically have it placed down, in my experience, which is something else I think they do need to sort of fix. What else are we going to do? We're going to do some here for fame. It's not fame, but it makes people happy to have them. So we're going to get a medium relic rock, and we will put down one about here. Seems like a good place to have one. Makes everyone a bit happy. For security-wise, I will put a couple of weapon racks down just for the aesthetic of it. Makes the village look more, well, it makes it look more like it's has a place some extra weapon stuff down by the front door. We can put some stuff like, if we wish to, this increases our storage as well, which is very nice to have. So, like, for example, we can have a wood cart. We could put that down here next to like a wood cart, down next to a carpenter. In some buildings. Who knows? But just for now, a little settlement is going well. We've got some planks, we've got some wood, we've got some stone. Everything's coming along well. I will put another order in to basically cut down some stone here. See here, have 3 wood, 20 stone, 30 timber. Then we need to build a marketplace and assign a market, basically a marketeer. So, markets in this game have 2 purposes, which is that they are primarily a storage place for your goods, but they are also a place where you can sell money, where basically people buy things and you basically get money for doing it. So let's put down a market straight across from our main hall, from our longhouse. In the longhouse, you can basically determine work priorities, like which is more important: cutting wood, chopping stone. Well, chopping wood and cutting stone. We'll get that put down. We'll get a road in place. Well, let's get a build first up. As you can see here, the way it works is that you assign some workers. I'm going to assign 3 workers. They need to have 6 logs and 30 stone to get through the initial phase of the construction. So we will need to basically get some more wood cut. The way that wood regrow, the way that trees regrow in this game is that as long as you don't disturb the stumps, and as long as you don't put buildings too close to them, eventually in time the trees will resprout and quickly grow back into new trees. So we'll get that done. They're building that. As I have said, one of the things, there's some things I do dislike about this game. So far, I like the general aesthetic of it. I do like the Viking period. As someone who's a fan of medieval period, the Viking period and the early medieval period is something I really like a lot. But there are some issues. Like, for example, like you go to place a house, and it will go, say, somewhere around here. It will, like, it doesn't do it with all the houses, but some of the bigger structures, like, say, like a windmill, and it will go, and you try and place it. There's a bumpy ground. There we go. Bumpy ground is the thing that I find frustrating. Okay, someone's died. Yeah, that's not great. Yeah, people do die in this game of old age and sickness and things. One thing I will say is that, like, the bumpy ground rule, as it is, or whatever it is, basically, it's the condition. It will basically go here and it'll say something like, yeah, very bumpy ground. There's no way, from what I can see, there's no way for you to basically smooth the ground out, which is something that you historically used to do. You used to level off ground to build structures. You can't do that. So a lot of your buildings you can't use the space as effectively as you would in real life, which is something that I do find a tad bit frustrating. So it also wants us now to assign someone to it, who is basically very fast. So let's get that done. There you go. Who's this? Listen, Dottir. I'm not going to try and pronounce Scandinavian names. I'm not fantastic at it. Add at least 10 decorations. Decorate the village. Okay. So, we also got another 2 objectives. Decorate the village and gather food. Build a gatherer's hut. Assign a gatherer. Gather your first fruit. Okay. So, first things first, we've got to quickly pause the game because everything keeps on going on at a pace, and we've got new villagers turning up in like 11 hours. What do we want to put down? I think what we'll put down, if I'm being honest, is we'll probably put down some more storage. Boxes, maybe. Buckets, barrels. Empty cart, wood. Yeah, we'll put that down. We'll put... You can also raise and lower the height of objects, which is... It's fine. I'd prefer it if it allowed you to basically just rotate it rather than, like, lowering the object, but that's just me. We'll put a couple down. Out with storage of wood, make it look more in keeping. Decorative. There's some stuff here like bone ornaments and the like. They're not cheap, unfortunately. Let us go and say... This is the game telling us we need to put stuff in. Let's grab some... No, we'll grab another wood cart. Have it near a house. Help with the storage of the wood. Here we'll put... I don't know. Let's put a gateway. Gateway to the village. Or something that regards... Like, this is the one thing I will say about the decorations. Like, they're nice, but at the same time, it's sort of a bit superficial, really. Because you're normally not high enough... You're normally not close enough in to really look in much detail at the village. And also, they just take up space. Not being nasty, but... Space in this game is one of the things that you actually have pretty limited ability to deal with. So having stuff that takes up any kind of space at all in this game is something that you actually need to sort of keep an eye on. There we go. And 10 decorations to the village. And that can tick on. And we get 50 gold and 250 fame. So they've cleared out all the stone on that side. We'll get them to dig up the stone here, and we'll cut down some trees. It's asking us to make a gathering hut. Okay. Gathering huts basically provide you with a small amount of food intake. So they realistically need to be like the closer you are to civilization, the less effective they are. So you really want your gathering hut to sort of be in the middle of like somewhere like here, basically. In my experience. So let's grab the gathering hut. And we'll throw it out to there. The reason I put roads down a lot of places is that your characters will walk faster on roads. Your villagers work faster on roads. Marketeers collect all the food from the marketplace in the village and buy, and the villagers buy this food from the marketplace. Yeah, this is where basically they'll come and they get their resources. All is good. So they're building a gathering place, which is fantastic. I know we're having some more villagers coming in soon, because you can see up here in the top corner. So I probably will get some trees cut down very quickly. I will also speed up the clock. Get people chopping stuff down. Okay. With our increased fame points, I will pop the next level of this. Getting people to work faster is always really nice. Even if it's just 1%, it still adds up. I will also get the crops field grow 5% faster, which is also really good. And there we go. Little things that help us early on. So I've invested my skill points and my tech points. They're going to turn up now asking for basically to join the village. Which will get a prompt saying, yeah, you can join. So we have 3 families. Now we have 4 families. So a new family's turned up. They will complain that they don't have any houses. So we need to basically build them a house. There's a couple of ways you can do it. The main differences between the houses is, from what I can tell, it basically, the better the house, the less fuel they use. That's the main difference. But this is relatively a big family, so I think I will throw down a relatively nice-looking house here. It costs a bit of money, it takes a lot more resources, but we currently have it, and there's a lot of people in this family, so it needs to get built up. So we need to chop these trees down. As long as we don't disturb them, they'll grow back up. And they require more logs and stuff. This is the one thing I will say. Trees in this game tend to be your primary sort of bottleneck. Because you basically use logs for everything, and you never really have enough logs. So it's one of those things that very quickly can catch you by surprise, especially if, for example, everyone is turning them into planks. So what I will do, for the sake of brevity, is basically pause our plank production, which will allow things to get carried over to locations where we need them to be brought over to. Because the longer you have people without homes, the worse it sort of becomes a bit of a crisis. This place is where you can build a mine. Mines are located at the feet of mountains. Iron and coal mines can be identified by their stone structure. Plus, it's really easy to basically see. I'll show you in a second. Right now, this job, for example, here, the gathering hut needs speed and luck. So let's pick someone that has. He's working something else. So let's pick. You have relatively good luck. You've got okay luck, but not great speed. Yes, you two can do that, and they'll gather supplies. But if you ever want to check, for example, where you can actually build things, say from mine, it will only tell you by this green line, so that's fine. The stuff over here we can't use, which is a bit strange, but that's just how it is. So let's get the world clock back on. Yes, I know. Please disappear. The game does get very dark, so having torches on hand around the settlement is actually a fairly good way of seeing what exactly it is your people are doing. Also keeps them happy because they can get it's dark at night. It's like, whatever will we do? So cut those trees down, please. We need more wood. So, some of the gripes I have in this game, as I have said previously, being unable to basically mess with the leveling, the layers of a map. So, for example, you want to put a house down, it says it's bumpy, you can't put it down. That's not something I particularly like. It would be nice if you had the ability to basically flatten areas, so you could maybe it costs money, but you can do it to basically get a better surface area. And gatherers are gathering supplies. Also, it'd be nice if you could get fame. In my experience, once you have these objectives done, it becomes a fairly frustrating method of getting fame, because most of the time you're getting it from having new colonists coming in. I know the game basically says, oh, special events. Basically you get it from special events and that, this and that. But I have found in my experience that you're predominantly getting it through population. So it's just one of those things. I don't know. I'd like it for there to be more ways for you to gain fame. See, could you get it? Completing objectives, increasing village population by various events. I haven't seen a lot of events. They tend to be... The events I have seen tend to be several that repeat. It will be stuff, for example, someone beats up someone in the square, or someone steals someone's knife. They tend to be very repetitive, I would say. In some regards. So here we've got a new objective. Build a warehouse, assign warehouse workers, build a herbalist hut, assign a doctor, find herbs. So basically, this is a step-by-step guide of how you build your colony. I will actually set it to the priority of getting this done, please. because like the sooner we get this done, the better. So if you guys could actually work on this thing rather than just faffing about, would be great. I will turn plank production back on. So they're there, they're building it. It's going up with the supplies that you put in place. I mean, the game looks pretty. Like, it definitely feels like you're in like a Viking settlement, or basically a Scandinavian settlement during this time period, which is very nice. Now, I do want to put these storage huts. This is another thing I will say. I would like it if they had ways of... What's the best way to say this? I find that in a lot of instances you're basically producing things that you don't use straight away. For example, like hides. You don't have access to the tailoring station very early on, so you're just having hides building up in your reserve, and you have nothing to do with them. It's the same, for example, like barley, like because you can grow crops in this game. There's basically fields. Stuff like barley and wheat, you grow it, and then it just sits in your storage because you can't process it without the higher tier production chain buildings. So, for example, brewery. Produced from barley. That's all it does. I haven't seen meals made with barley. I think it's one of those things where it's linked to only a single production chain. But it's one of the things that I do say. I will say I have issues with this game. For example, if you go too early into something, say for example you went down the making beer, like I'm going to make beer really early in my colony, and you make beer, you can't do anything with it because you need to have a tavern, because for some reason your colonists won't drink the beer without a tavern, so you end up having tons of resources like final products in your storehouses that you can't use. And this is one of the things I would say that they need to sort of implement, if I'm being honest. They need to have like lesser buildings. Maybe you just have sort of like a drinking hut or a drinking house, which is an early place where you can have people drinking alcohol, because you can produce alcohol really early in the game. As you can see here from the tech tree, for example, like we get access to the farms, like you get access to the farms and the windmill really early on. Like it's the second thing you can get access to the brewery. It's the second thing you unlock. The thing is that without the tavern, you can't, in my experience, do anything with the alcohol. It just sits in your storage. It's the same with the hunter's lodge, like the hunting hut. Like, yeah, you get meat from it, but all the hides just stay in your storage, not doing anything. And as you can see up here, it's one of these things which is like, I find it a bit frustrating, which is a lot of the basic production chains you just have no control over. Like, yes, you have hide and you have wool and stuff that you have lying around in your storage, but until you unlock the tailoring hut or the tavern or the blacksmith or any of these like higher production chain buildings, they don't do anything. Your villagers don't make anything with them. So it ends up being that you just have your storage full of supplies that you have no use for. And I would suggest to the developers that maybe they put in, like, for example, like a tavern building, like not even a tavern, like they say a drinking hut or basically a cup house, where it's not as effective as, say, a tavern, but it means that it's somewhere early on that you can have your villagers who, if they've produced beer, they can basically make use of it, which is something that currently is lacking. And you have to sort of really rapidly chase down production chains to basically get the resources you need. Which is not something that I'm a fan of, to be honest. I would like it that if you're going to do something like that, it's more along the lines of you have like an inferior building type, like you have, say, I don't know, like I said, like a cup hut. You have a cup house or something which is useful, but at the same time not as effective as, say, a later production building. Because that's just how it's one of the things I do say I have found slightly frustrating about this game, is that it just makes it feel like, what's the point of having barley? There's no point having barley early on, because yes, you can make the alcohol, but your colonists never use it. They just leave it in storage. It just fills up storage. It's the same with, say, the animal farms. Yes, you get wool from it. Yes, you get hides, but you don't use it for anything until you unlock the higher tier buildings. So they just sit in storage and fill up your storage. And it's the issue I have with this game, is that very quickly a lot of your storage just becomes completely dominated by, it's like, okay, I've got like dozens and dozens of hides that I've got no use for. Like, what do I do with these these resources? I can't do anything with them. We'll put a hunting place here. Guess it's some extra food products. And I have to say, it isn't like a minor bugbear. I will not lie. But I just wish that it wasn't the case. I wish it was just this tiny little thing where it was like, oh, okay, so yeah, it's, I know, I don't mean to, I just find it like a slight peeve, because I hate having just wasted resources that you have nothing to do, and they just sit around. And you want to do something. Like, you can see it here. Like, in my experience playing this game, like, you get tons of leather. If you make beer, required for beer, tavern, and for cruises. So basically, if you have, like, when I was playing my test game, I got to like 4 or 5 hours in, and I had tons of beer. No use for it, because it just sat there in my storage because no one was taking it out because I didn't have a tavern. So I don't know. I think this can be overcome if you just have inferior, like, starting tier equivalents of buildings. Say that maybe you have like a cup house or something, where it's not as effective as a tavern, but it allows you to get rid of your beer. Maybe you have like a basic clove working hut where it allows you to produce some clothes from resources, but not as effectively, or maybe it takes longer. Just things that you can upgrade later on with better technology. Because it's very easy in this game just to get a lot of wasted resources. But as you can see, the trees are growing back. Over time, trees do grow back, so that's where you get a lot of your wood from, as long as you don't intrude too much. I do like this game. I like the art style of it. I like the historical nature of it. And I like a lot about it. I'm not going to lie. I know I've grumbled, but there's just certain things, there are certain bugbears that I dislike. It would be nice if you had a tool for landscaping. Like a tool to allow you to flatten out the landscape. Yes, maybe it takes gold to do. That's fine. I'd also like, for example, because you can see all the stuff you can build here. You can build totems. Yeah, that's fine. That's all great. I'd like it if there were like temples that we could build, like temples to Thor, temples to Odin. I'd like also there to be, like, for example, maybe a graveyard or some way of getting rid of bodies. Because I know when people die, I think they just disappear. I haven't been able to find any bodies once someone dies and disappears. So I'd like that kind of thing. Or maybe you just designate an area and they put up sort of rune stones, tiny little like rune stones or something, just to say like, okay, you can keep track of who's died, or that kind of thing. Quality of life stuff, like I said, maybe having ineffective lower tier equivalents to some of the buildings so you can get those production chains going early and have them actually mean something, which would be nice. Overall, though, I like the game. I think Land of the Vikings has a lot of promise. I like the fact that you can go out and raid and all that kind of thing. Though, as I have said, I have some issues with the tech tree. The fact that it's tied behind either population size or you completing certain objectives or various events. I don't know. Maybe they need to add more variety of events in. It's also stuff that they talk about village security, but it never gets discussed in the tutorial exactly what village security is. So it's like, okay, is it the defense points? Is that what they're talking about? Is it because I don't have like a training ground, which you can't access until later on in the skill in the sort of tech tree? I think a lot of these things could be fixed purely by just having, as I said, lower tier equivalents of things. Maybe you just have like a brawling ground or something, somewhere where, yeah, maybe it's ineffective or has a limited amount of people that it can have like in its like slots that you can have associated with it. But it'd be nice just to sort of have a bit more sort of variety of structures early on in the game. Like you can put fields in. Like fields is a good example. Like if we put a field in, we go food production, we go field, which is still in the testing phase, so it may count some errors. So for example, let's put a field in, say, this is where we're going to be basically building a lot of houses. So let's say we put the field behind the houses. Yeah, let's say that. So let's put the houses in. Let's put the field in. We'll go like this. No, that's not going to work because it's trees. The field system is still relatively problematic, I'm not going to lie. So let's say, put the field in here. And we'll go something like this. And it comes around and makes a field. Personally, I think there are easier ways to get a field in place, if it were me. So we've put a field in here. So with a field, we can say, select what we want to make. The problem is, like, if you make barley, it just doesn't get used for anything besides beer. So this is the thing I said, it'd be nice to have, basically, grow crops and your villagers can eat the crops without having to sort of go up the production chain. Because I'd think that'd be a really nice thing to have. Because it just makes it feel more relevant. It's one of the things that I would say that the game sort of needs. It needs to have more development of its production chains, because as it is, a lot of its production chains are very simple, which are you have this product, it goes into making this item, that's all it's used for. For example, no active farmers. Why are there no active farmers? Yeah, fine, come on. Oh, because we haven't got any water. Okay, well, no active farmer coming in. Okay. But I just feel that it does miss certain things. Like, a lot of the production chains need more development. They need to have, for example, they need to feel like, okay, yes, so I can make barley and that will eventually turn into, say, beer, but in the meantime, I can basically make porridge out of the barley. I just feel that they need to basically diversify what ingredients and what products you have can be used for, like, at a lower state level. Maybe it's not as productive to just eat the barley rather than processing it, but it allows you to fill that stock gap. Also, we have, for example, here, like, this is what I was saying about the homeless situation, which is that as soon as children sort of grow up, come on, let me select you. Here, as you can see here, they sort of grow up and get married and they sort of move out of the house. They suddenly then demand to have a new house, which historically didn't always happen. But this happens quite a lot. So eventually you get sort of like you get a lot of homeless people running around and you sort of need to find houses and stuff for them. But this has been landed the Vikings, folks. I do like this game. I think it's a good game. It needs a bit more polishing, in my honest opinion. As someone who's played colony simulators before, I feel that the base concept is strong, and the foundation that it has is good. But I think they need to tweak certain things. They need to tweak, for example, how you get the tech levels. They need to have like inferior equivalent buildings early on that you can just sort of throw up without needing to sort of go deep into the tech tree to get access, say, to the tavern or to the blacksmith. Like things that, like, yes, you can make these primitive things. They're not great, and you're doing it at a massive loss, but you can still make it early on, and you can still use these things early on. Because, for example, early on, there's no point having fields. Like, there's no point growing wheat. There's no point growing barley, because you can't process them. And if you don't process them, they just sit around in your storehouse taking up space. So I think that's something they need to address. They need to find basically resource uses for items that you produce in this game early on, and then make them more complex. It's basically making a more diverse production tree for items. Same thing with the fact is, like, you get the ground that's too bumpy. They should say, okay, you have a button that allows you to basically do landscaping. It costs gold to do it, and it's expensive to do it, but that would be something that you could use your gold for. Like, yes, I have this land that I can't use because it's not flat, but I should be able to pay money and basically landscape it to make it flat. Or maybe it costs more money to basically put houses on uneven ground because you have to spend gold or silver to basically do ground leveling for the foundations of the buildings. It's like these kind of things. Because it's, I don't know, it just feels a bit, it sort of slightly breaks the immersion when you've got to put a house down. It's like, oh, the ground is too bumpy. Okay. Can't I just, like, level it off? But overall, I think this game is really good. Has a lot of premise. We didn't be able to get that far into it to show off the more complex things, but that's just how the game is, unfortunately. Like, for example, here, like, for example, it gives you a fishing hut, but you can't do anything with the fishing hut until you get the shipyard. So it seems a bit weird that they give you a fishing hut and you can't do anything with it. So I think you can do a little bit of fishing off the pier, but that's about it. But I think just like it needs to have a bit more polish put into it, if I'm being honest. And just some of their more concepts either explained or developed more. But overall, I do like this game a lot, and it is in early access. You can pick it up from Steam. I'll put a link in the description below. I've been Cornish-knight. This has been Land of the Vikings, and I shall see you all again next time. Goodbye.